For those of you I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet, thank you all for coming. I hope you enjoyed your walk in this evening. What we wanted to show you was the $60 million investment that ByteGrid has made in the facility by walking you through our new data center floor space, as well as our new office space. But we also wanted to give you a feel for what this building once was by taking you through that second floor room that was kind of like the original factory space. We're very excited to be here. For those of you that don't know us, we built the region's first purpose-built data center in Canton 5.5 years ago. We've had a number of clients in Canton that are from this area that have had their technology outside of the region because there wasn't a purpose-built facility, bring it back to the region. We've attracted technology from companies outside of the region to Canton, as well as companies from outside the United States to Canton. And many of them have been asking to come to Cleveland. So we're excited to be here. Our partner ByteGrid, who made the investment in this facility, also viewed Cleveland as a ripe opportunity. And I'd like to introduce to you right now the CEO of our partner ByteGrid, Mr. Ken Parent.
Well, that's quite a change from what I usually get when I come home every night. But thank you so much for being here. We are excited to be partners with SecureData in this facility. As Mike said, we have made a significant investment in this project here. We are a national provider of premier co-location facilities across the country, from Atlanta all the way out to Seattle. This is very symbolic of what we do. We come into a market where we see opportunity, where we see the need for the product that we can deliver, which is a very high quality facility that will meet pass the scrutiny of the most discriminating data center user, whether it's a Fortune 50 company, a governmental agency, and certainly whether it's a one rack user. You're going to be elbow to elbow with somebody who has put us really through the paces. So this is what we do, and this is the third facility in our evolution. We now have 5 across the country that are enterprise quality facilities like this, and a handful of other disaster recovery and cloud pods throughout the country. We're actually in 6 different markets, and just couldn't be happier again to see you all here. Excited about being in Cleveland. You know, when we looked at where we wanted to go, the map was wide open for us, and there are 4 or 5 markets that are heavily populated by our competition, and then there is a whole landscape that's wide open. So we looked at the landscape and looked at the opportunity. When the opportunity came here to buy this, looked at Cleveland real hard, studied the emerging trends, looked at what was happening in the financial sector, looked at what was happening in the healthcare sector, and said, you know, this is a place that could use our product, and our product doesn't exist here today. But it's really about who we partner with, because our success is based on our customers' success. And although we own the building and on paper we're landlord and they're tenants, they're truly our customers. And when we met Mike and Ernie and Tim early on and looked at what they were doing out in Canton and said, you know, they're one of the premier managed service providers in the area, we want them here. So we almost went out and bought the facility out in Canton just to make sure we can get them here, but we didn't have to do that. So we're just delighted that they're here and ready to open. We're ready to open our doors and ready for business next month, and look forward to, this is really step 1. This first phase that we've built here that you've walked through and seen is the first of several phases. We're definitely in here for the long run, and we'll see where we go. So thank you all again.
Thanks, Ken. We had invited the mayor here this evening, and he was planning to come. However, he is at an event tonight at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's a busy week in our city. For those of you who know our mayor, he's a man of few words, but I have found that he surrounds himself with really, really bright and intelligent people, and I'm honored that he sent one of his stars here this evening. She's been involved in probably most of the rebirth that's been going on here in the city, and she's definitely played a role in helping ByteGrid navigate City Hall. But I'd like to introduce to you the Economic Development Director for the City of Cleveland, Tracy Nichols.
All right, first of all, on behalf of Mayor Jackson, I want to welcome everyone here, but more importantly, I want to welcome SecureData 365. We had talked to SecureData 365 a few years ago. We were very interested in them coming to Cleveland, so we couldn't be more delighted that they're here in the ByteGrid facility, and they're going to be doing some business here. One of the things about Cleveland is we have invested in a 100 gig network, the first commercial 100 gig network in the nation. And with it, people who are along the fiber line that we have here, including ByteGrid, SecureData 365, will be able to hook in and use speeds up to 100 gig. While we know there's probably no one who needs that much speed right now, the good idea is that it's already here, and this summer we'll have it up and live and ready to go. We couldn't make an incredible network without data centers like this, and so having SecureData here is of great importance to us from an economic development perspective. And while the mayor is at the Rock Hall because of the induction ceremony, which is important to our city, for economic development, this is the event to be at, so we're very excited to be here. But I want to just say the mayor has given a proclamation welcoming SecureData 365 to Cleveland. But what he said here is that with the contribution of SecureData 365, Cleveland is becoming known as the epicenter of innovation. And I think that's what's critical. Having these types of tools, the assets that people need who are being innovative for technology, it's critically important. So we're very happy to be here, and I want to present this to Mike and say thank you so much for being here, and on behalf of the mayor, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Tracy. There's one other person I saw standing here I'd like to point out to you guys. ByteGrid hired a gentleman to run this project, Mr. Simon Tusha. Simon, could you raise your hand real quick? Ladies and gentlemen, man is considered one of the leading data center builders around the world. He's done work for a lot of the large technology companies, and he's run this project. And it will be certified this summer by the Uptime Institute, will be LEED certified, and they have built a world-class facility that will attract people from all over the world. I'd like everyone to give Simon a big hand for the work he's done here. All right, one last thing. We picked this date for two reasons. Today is April 14th. Tomorrow, a lot of you, I'm sure, have forms and checks that need to go into the mail. This facility, for the first time, the state of Ohio is allowing tenants who purchase equipment here for the next 15 years to be placed in this facility. It will receive a sales tax exemption. And here in Cuyahoga County, that's 8%. So I know a lot of times when we buy hardware, we don't talk about sales tax. But again, if you're thinking about making a large hardware purchase, there is an opportunity by using this facility to receive some sales tax exemption. The other reason we chose this date is tomorrow is the last day of the regular season of the National Basketball Association. The Cleveland Cavaliers are a client of ours. This is a big year for them as well, and I'm very honored that they've agreed to send two executives over here this evening. I'm going to introduce both of them now. The first one who's going to come up first is Mr. Len Komorowski. Len is the CEO of the Cavaliers as well as CEO of Quicken Loans Arena. He's played a huge role not only in helping the basketball team but bringing the Republican National Convention to Cleveland next year. He's going to talk a little bit about the transformation that's going on. And following him is going to be Mr. David Griffin, the GM of the Cavs, and he'll give a little playoff preview. So guys, come on up.
Thanks, Mike. First of all, unbelievable facility, right? I mean, Tracy's a terrific partner of ours as well with the city, and the city's an incredible partner in terms of developing with what's going on here in the community. But, you know, Ernie, Tim, Mike, you have to be really proud. And I'm just proud as a Clevelander to be here. I'm getting goosebumps because when you think about, well, Griff's going to be up here in a second, and he's the one you really want to hear from because he'll tell you, he's the architect of the unbelievable things that are happening on the floor with the Cavs. But we were in the playoffs 5 years ago, right? Remember then, 9, 10? And do you remember our city back then? Just think back in time. And I've had the good fortune to have lived in different markets, Twin Cities, Chicago, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia. I count myself very fortunate to have landed here, been here for 12 years now. And the transformation you're seeing, just even in the last 5 years, since the last time we were in the playoffs, is absolutely stunning. So $20 billion of development in our region as a whole, most ever in a 5-year stretch, and that came out of the throes of the recession. We have more people living downtown, 15,000, which is up from like 2,500 about 12 years ago. We had 12 million visitors to downtown Cleveland this past year, which is up about 120% over 2 years ago. You know, we are a destination. Believe it or not, folks, buckle up. We are a destination, and we're making Foder's list of top places to travel, New York Times, you name it. We truly have become a destination. And, you know, the RNC, you know, Mike referenced the RNC, and that's been, you know, in essence, it's become a flag planted for our community. And not only is it the second largest media event in the world with 15,000 plus media coming here, that's 4 times more than a Super Bowl. So think about that in terms, that's 3/4 of the queue full of just media. 60,000 people in general, $400 million of economic impact. But it's really become a flag planted for our community to really accelerate things like Public Square's transformation and the pedestrian bridge and the Hilton Hotel and so many other things. And it's truly been stunning and transformational. And having seen it take place in Philadelphia, where I was previously, it's amazing what can happen in such a quick time. But now we're at a point where we have what I would call as more sustainable momentum. So we had the comeback city era in the 90s, which we had some big rocks that happened, and we sort of fell off we went on a slide for a bit. But now we're at a point here where now we're on the radar nationally and internationally. And when you have companies like SecureData 365 making investments in the community, you know, this type of leadership and this type of commitment is critical because, well, you know, I shouldn't say this, I'm a Pittsburgh native, okay, so I know there's a groaning. But it's a tale of two cities, right? Mid-industrial heritage cities, hardworking Midwestern values and people. You know, these are the markets 100 years ago that were defining the landscape of the nation. You know, Cleveland 100 years ago was the 5th largest city. It was Chicago. It was a center of innovation, creativity, industry, philanthropy. And now, you know, in terms of the investments like Ernie and his team are making, we are transforming into an innovation and technology-based leadership position on what's going on nationally in terms of all different types of spaces, including healthcare and what else is all over evolving. So it is a new age, you know, brain economy, and Cleveland is leading the charge. And there's any number of factors and demographics that are pointing to that fact in terms of number of young professionals living here, one of the top markets for millennials in the country. And Cleveland is cool. Cleveland is hip. And you're all part of it and playing a leadership role with this. So we're incredibly honored and privileged to be part of this. We have, in terms of an ownership team, and our Dan Gilbert, who you know, that's Dan. Dan is about innovation and about not only that, but Dan is a major investor in great Midwestern cities like Cleveland, Canton, as well as with Detroit, his hometown as well. And we're privileged and honored to have someone like Dan who gives us the resources and the platform to dream and to dream big. And to date, you know, Dan's invested over $1 billion in downtown Cleveland, 12 different companies, and over 4,000 team members, including, you know, great companies like Veritix, our ticketing, innovative ticketing company, and certainly everything we have going on at the Cavs and Q and Bisdom, which is the boot camp incubator for startup entities and companies throughout the city as well. So pretty remarkable time. So when you think back 5 years ago and now as we enter the playoffs, and it's a different city. And we're ready. And when you look at the great thing about sports franchises, and I think that's what really gets us charged, and we have no pun intended, I guess we got, you know, our Charger team, we're really proud to have SecureData 365 as our presenting partner, the Canton Charge, as well as a partner with the Cavs and the Q and the Monsters and the Glads, and got Kerry Buboltz, who's our president, and Mike Levy, who's also the president of the heads up the Charge as well, and Ed Cordell heads up our IT. A number of our team members are here today as well, as far as this goes. But we are so far, I think we've made so much great progress. The thing about sports, which really gets us going, gets me personally going, is there's nothing like sports to unite a community together, all walks of life within the community. And the other thing I'll tell you, though, about sports, which is a great, a proud badge that we wear when we have Cleveland across our chest for our players, is it is the window to the world for our community. So the NBA as a league is televised in 215 different countries. So when those games are being televised and they're showing the beauty shots as they go in and out of commercial breaks, and they're showing Playhouse Square, showing the Rock Hall, showing East 4th Street, all the lake shore, the skyline, all those things. It's shaping the dialogue of how people feel about this community. And the metrics are all showing it's only going in one direction, and that's up. So just one last stat to give you an idea. So with the RNC, prior to the naming of the RNC, we had 1,100, over the year, 1,100 articles or stories written about Cleveland as a community. Just about what it's like, you name it in general. Within 2 weeks after the naming of the RNC, we had 8,000. And that story is continuing to go on and on and on. So, we feel, again, honored to be able to play a part of that. I'm gonna turn it over to Griff, and he can tell you about all the great things that are happening on the floor, but the beauty of that is, and I know he wears this badge with a great amount of honor. So Griff is one of the top, he's gonna, if he isn't the executive of the year in the NBA, then, everybody talks about the lottery being fixed, and that's being fixed, right? Even though he did manage to fix the lottery 3 out of 4 years, so that's a pretty talented individual there. So, but Griff has worked with some of the great minds in basketball and Jerry Colangelo, but coming in here, he's come and set the table and created that fit with our organization. But I know he wears the badge of honor for Cleveland as well, because what goes on that floor is representing our city and is putting us out to a national and international landscape. And you know what? I know no one else in terms of I'd rather have as far as a leader to lead the charge. I think anybody in this community, we're very fortunate to have Griff here to help to be the great architect to be able to put this all together and hopefully set up for a pretty exciting number of weeks ahead. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Griff. And, I'm looking everywhere except here. Okay, Griff. Thanks.
Being the great scout that I am, I found where the steps were to come up rather than trying to make the jump you did. So I'd like to thank, obviously, Ernie and Michael for having us here, for their sponsorship and relationship with the Canton Charge. I'm going to be fairly short in my first comments, and then I'd like to open it up for your questions. And the primary reason I'm going to be short is that at 8 o'clock tonight, your Canton Charge are going to kick the crap out of Sioux Falls in the playoffs on ESPNU, and I'm sure they'd want to see that as well. But the partnership we have with them is really significant, and during the time that Lynn was referring to, the last 5 years of watching the inertia of the city of Cleveland, which is a period of time. LeBron left when he left in July of 10, and I came here in September of 10. So my mother thinks of these 5 years as a David Griffin era already. But it's something for us that we're just really honored to have been able to be part of. My wife Meredith and I, when we came here, it was amazing how much passion the city of Cleveland had for this team. And when we were going through the process of trying to help build it, it really was overwhelming to have the number of people in the queue, as vocal as they were in the queue, when we really were not a product that I was particularly proud of watching. And now as we've all gone through that pain together, we're getting to a point now where we're going to get to really enjoy the benefits of that. And the joy that you get to feel when you're in that building, when we're playing well. And I got to talk to many of you tonight, and some of you were with us at our game yesterday. When you get to be in that building and we're playing really well, it's like a joy induction device. If you can't walk out of there a happier person, there's something altogether wrong with you. And that's a joy for me to get to be part of bringing. And I know it's an incredible joy to our ownership to bring winning back to the city. It's something that they are completely dedicated to. We've got a very clear purpose and a very clear vision. We're here to deliver championships. That's all we do. And so from a leadership perspective, it's easy to do my job. I just get to represent all of the people that are led by the most amazing ownership group and the best business side there is in the league. So I get to be sort of the face man, and they do all of the work, which is really cool. But we have a beautiful, beautiful situation right now, a team that's moving in the right direction, both on and off the court. When LeBron came back and chose to to come back to Cleveland, I had no earthly idea what that was going to do to all of us in terms of the expectation of winning. There was a moment where literally I got down on my knees when I found out the news, and I was as joyful as I have ever been for about 45 seconds. And then I went, oh, wow, now what? Because he doesn't show up thinking you're going to build and it's all going to be swell and this will be organic and we're going to be better step by step. That's not what it is. LeBron shows up, you are all about winning a championship. And so to that end, we went about the process of putting together the team we did in the offseason. Kyrie Irving making the decision to stay as a free agent even before LeBron came was critical for us, because it showed that we had built during that 5 years an organization. And maybe since I had taken over the previous February, I got to have more involvement in it, but everybody that contributed to it throughout that period of time, we had built a culture that Kyrie wanted to be part of. And that sent the message to LeBron and his people that this wasn't an organization that was in disarray. It was an organization that had a plan. Kyrie bought into that plan. When we sat with LeBron and his people, he bought into the plan, a plan that involved Kevin Love. We'd been trying to acquire him for a couple years. So he bought into that, and we had a shared vision. And obviously you've seen how unbelievably passionate LeBron is about Northeast Ohio. And it means everything to him to deliver championships here. And the success that he's given us as a team and he's enabled us to build to can't be understated. I really appreciate what Lynn said about the Executive of the Year thing. That award should really be called Organization of the Year, because literally nobody is going to say, if you give them a sheet of paper, write down the 10 best general managers in the NBA. I promise you nobody who knows basketball is going to put my name on that list. But if you ask people to write down the 10 best organizations in the NBA, I guarantee you Cleveland's in it, whether we win the award or not. It's really about an organization building what we've built. And so, again, people like SecureData make it possible for us to do that, because this is where we're really blessed. We have ownership that takes every dollar we have and puts it back into the product. So as we're building this team and we're making trades trying to get better, I don't have to worry about going over the luxury tax, which is how you get Iman Shumpert, J.R. Smith, and Timofey Mozgov. That doesn't happen just everywhere. And it happened here because, again, it's a singular vision. And so that's what we're doing, and that's what we're trying to build towards. Now, if you got to see our game Sunday at Boston on TV at all, anybody see that? God, I'm really sorry. That was gruesome. But what it represented is the opportunity for us to really try to prime the pump for what's coming next. And we're trying to make sure that we maintain rhythm, get these guys enough rest, and that the day that first playoff practice starts, which will be Thursday morning, everybody understands we take no prisoners. Everybody's all in or you're all out. And, excuse me, I get emotional when I think about that. But it's an awesome moment to be part of that first playoff practice, because you know guys are focused in a way they really haven't been all year. They think they have been. You know, when we went on our 12-game winning streak, they think we were tuned in. We've got a lot of kids that are going to experience it for the first time, so I get excited picturing them in that practice. But as we head towards this, I just tell everybody, be mindful of every moment of what you get to see. Appreciate every stop, appreciate every basket. Live for joy in each one of those moments, and don't judge this on the end, because this is something that takes a long time to get right, and we're trying to do it in a very short period of time. And the only reason we're able to do it is because we've got the big three of the most selfless stars you've ever seen, a guy who should be MVP every single year in LeBron. And the only reason he's not is that it's also known as, just like Executive of the Year is misnamed, the MVP has become sort of the also had a really cool statistical year award. That's kind of what it becomes. Steve Nash won it 2 years in a row when we were together in Phoenix. We won 60-plus games. He led us to that. He absolutely was deserving of the award. But we were sort of in the in-between stage of LeBron era and the Michael Jordan era. Michael Jordan should have won it every single year he played. And voter apathy, he doesn't win it. Somebody else has a really cool statistical year, he doesn't win it. LeBron wins it just by virtue of being LeBron and the impact he has on his team, on his city, on the league. It's a given he's the best player in the NBA. So they can call it the most valuable player, but it's just a misnomer. But what it's really done is it's heightened everybody's awareness in our building, from ownership to Lynn and Carrie and myself and all of our staff. We've got a goal and we've got a finite window. And so every moment that you get to enjoy watching this group, I promise you they will give every single thing they have to deliver on that promise. So with that, I'll give you any opportunity you'd like to ask questions. I think we've got some mics too, so.
Does anyone have a question that they want to ask Mr. Griffin?
Okay, I put a couple people up to questions too, so you don't get away.
Has David Blatt met your expectations?
Yeah, absolutely. David's done a remarkable job, and I actually am remiss in not even speaking about him earlier. When we made those deals, he had to incorporate several new pieces on the fly while coaching in a league he's never coached in before. David's won championships. I think we went through this the other day. He's won 25 championships or cups in a 21-year coaching career. Now, in Europe, they do things differently. There's multiple cups in the course of a year. But I don't care what league you're coaching in. You can coach in men's league basketball. If you're winning that much, you do something special. And to win at the level he had won at, he's really a special coach in his ability to focus on what really matters. And that's what he did with the group. He put everybody in the best position to succeed. So, yeah, he absolutely has done that.
All right, we got another one here.
When the media quotes on, the issues, quote unquote, with Blatt and LeBron, which are ridiculous, how do you handle that internally, and do you?
So in part, we really don't internally because we all know it's ridiculous. One of the things that I think has happened this year with us is we had 3 national media people that were embedded with us from different outlets that were with us literally all year long. But they have no more access than the local guys do, and they don't watch practice. So what happens is at the end of any practice in any NBA city, the media comes in for the last 15 minutes, and at that point, what the guys are doing is shooting free throws. Or they're doing things like hustling each other for one-legged shots for $20 a shot and things like that. Well, we've got assistant coaches who played. Ty Lue's one of them. James Posey's one of them. So what the media sees is our guys gravitating towards those guys, and they're all hanging out talking and shooting and whatever. Well, yeah, it's because they all played. And they all do the same routine all the time. And most of our assistant coaches go watch film, or they're doing other things with players. They take some of the young kids in and they show them what's going on. So it's interesting that what happens and gets written about is you get to see the tail end of something that's really just a interaction between human beings, and that starts to be what you equate with respect level of coaching. And then you watch our bench. We have the most unique bench in the NBA by far, because we've got the coaching staff that we do. And David is so completely secure in himself that he wants guys to give input. He's encouraged those guys to do the things they do. And he's encouraged LeBron to give him the feedback he does. Just as Mike D'Antoni did in Phoenix with Steve Nash. It's not even unique to talk about play calling by way of example. It's not even interesting. So internally, we didn't talk about it because it wasn't it just wasn't a topic. But what I do think has happened, and it was really important for us, all of the media scrutiny in the beginning of the year really galvanized our group, because it sort of was a rallying point for us. Everybody understood, look, we're all we've got. Because everything around us was at such a fever pitch, and it was almost all of it was such nonsense that it got to the point where everybody was able to ignore the noise. And when you get to that and you count on each other, and you rely on each other like they had to because of the media nonsense, I think that adversity actually sets us up to be better moving forward than we would have been without it. So in hindsight, I'm really grateful for it. As it was happening, my wife wanted to have me committed, but other than that.
I know we got a great bench. You just mentioned about it. And when I think back, great bench, San Antonio. That's how they got where they were last year. So in the future, what are we looking at in the NBA draft? Is anybody in particular that we're looking for? Or?
You said in the draft, correct?
Yes, correct.
So I think what we have right now is an opportunity to select literally the, quote, best player available. And it's because we've got a team that lends itself to that. I think if you look at our depth across the board, we probably are a point guard short. We have a roster imbalance because we've got 4 centers and 2 point guards. So we might try to address the balance of that at some point, but it doesn't have to necessarily be through the draft. The one thing that's really a blessing for us, and Len and I had talked about this once quite a long time ago, but it really does affect SecureData and everybody that's with the Canton Charge. When we first bought the Canton Charge, we were a team that was clearly rebuilding and had a plan in mind. And what that meant was we were going to be making lottery selections in the first round. Well, lottery selections don't get sent to the D-League. They play for your varsity team. So what happened was we built a model in Canton with a bunch of really high caliber, high character professionals that when we sent somebody down, they embraced the role that that player was going to play, and they weren't worried about their own star, which was really designed around the idea of a selfless team. And because of that, we were able to send some guys down that gave us some real meaningful minutes, and we pulled Alonzo G out of the D-League, and we did some things like that. But the guys we were drafting didn't end up there. Now we hope we're at a point where Joe Harris, who's going to play tonight and had a great game the other night, we hope that the guys we're drafting, we're able to send down to Canton and raise the talent level enough that they can compete for championships. Because that team's made the playoffs every year of their existence on coaching, chemistry, and character. Mike Gansey, the general manager of that team, does an unbelievable job. He'd have been here tonight, but his wife's about to give birth. And that whole thing was based on the model that we were trying to build in Cleveland. And they were successful every year in existence because of it. And so what I hope happens now is when we're drafting, you hope very late in the 20s as time goes on, but this year 24, 25. You hope that those people play a big role in Canton and raising the level of their talent base. So that's how I would say the draft looks now.
Hey, David, it seems like the guys really check their egos at the door. You know, playing as a team, like you've mentioned Joe Harris and Delbadova and the whole guys. What do you do as an organization to make that happen?
I gave the fist pump because this was one he had to ask a question. Can you ask your question again for me, please? Really, I'm serious.
Sure. What do you do to create an environment where these guys literally check their egos at the door and work together as a team?
Okay, good. I just want to make sure I had that right. So I think what we did really successfully was focus on high character individuals to start with. It's very, very hard to get people that are me-oriented people to ever be we-oriented people in the absence of group success. And we didn't know how successful we were going to be, so we wanted to sort of stack the deck and have really high character people, which is a Joe Harris, by way of example, a Matthew Dellavedova. I mean, these are guys that'll run through a brick wall. But this is also guys like LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, Tristan Thompson, Kevin Love. We've got a group of extremely high character people, and I think that's the starting point. But the other thing is it's coming up with that focal point goal again that everybody buys into. And David and his staff did an amazing job of getting buy-in from all of our veterans. You know, Mike Miller and James Jones would have been worth their weight in gold whether they played a minute or not because of what they did in our locker room. So if leadership comes from within and leadership comes from your staff, and you've got an organization that's all committed to the same vision, I think culture sort of develops itself. Because nobody has to say what your culture is. You live it every day.
Could you tell us about the playoffs? I'd like to know about your thoughts on the playoffs, and in the Eastern Conference, who are you most concerned about facing and why? And then if we make it to the finals, who would you like to see and who wouldn't you like to see?
Wow, okay, first of all, there's a lot of head knocking that has to go on there if we make it to the finals. Those are high-class problems. I mean, you take anybody at that point. I wouldn't care who it was. In terms of the matchups in the Eastern Conference, I like teams that don't make a lot of shots. So What I'd like to see us do is play defensively in a way that we're capable of. From the time we made the deals, I think January 15th, we're the 12th or 13th most efficient defense, but we've been pretty crappy defensively for about a month. And that's because we had a belief that we could just turn the screws up a little bit defensively, be really good for a little while, build a big lead, and then coast. Can't do that anymore. So it's a habit I would have liked us not to have built. It's a habit that great teams have, but great teams like San Antonio have the continuity to overcome that. That doesn't become their identity. It's just what they did for a time. So San Antonio's entering the playoffs on an enormous tear. I think they've won 11 or 12 in a row by an average like 20 points a game. You want teams to peak at that point if you can. The reason they're able to do it is because they're still fighting for playoff seeding in the Western Conference, and we were fortunate enough to clinch second in our division, or rather in our conference, so we didn't need to do that. And there's some negatives to that too. I wish we were on a little bit more of a roll heading into it, so we're going to have to overcome that. But in terms of the teams we'd like to see, I want to see the teams that are as comfortable as we were entering the playoffs, not the teams that were super hungry entering the playoffs. So it's going to be interesting to see between Brooklyn, Indiana, and Boston who we get. Because the one thing I do know is you're going to see who wants you too. So it's competitively, I don't care either way.
All right, any other questions?
So you guys have built up a lot of momentum this year. Do you guys think you'll be able to carry the roster and the momentum going forward after the finals?
Boy, I hope so. It's been a great group of guys to be around. They have incredible chemistry together. They really like each other. And again, we need continuity moving forward. The only thing that precludes us from doing that is we've got several free agents. So it's going to be a situation where we have to hope that they've enjoyed their experience with us as much as we've enjoyed the time with them. I think all of them do, but there's an awful lot of unknowns there. The one thing that I do believe is that everybody wants to be back. And so that being a starting point, I feel really comfortable that we'll either be able to keep this group together or something that looks very close to this group.
We got one more back here.
Okay.
You talked about buy-in with a team. Now, we all know that if we have LeBron on our team, it's an easy buy-in to get the rest of the team on. But clearly you guys had some principles that you guys used when you signed Kyrie. What are a couple of those principles? Most of these guys in here are business people. What kind of principles do you guys use for a buy-in?
So tell me, what do you mean specifically? What did we like about Kyrie's game, or?
How did you get Kyrie convinced to buy into the Cavs?
Got it.
Without having LeBron there?
So I think a big part of it was a vision of the kind of basketball we would play. And we're not there yet in terms of the vision of what I saw coming in and what I hope we end up delivering on. But the vision of the kind of basketball we would play, the ability to take advantage of a ball-dominant point guard who's a play creator, spacing the floor and enabling him to see the targets. The way we played in the past, he played in a shoebox a little bit. So he couldn't see targets, and so he became much more of a scoring-oriented guard because the game wasn't wide open enough to see where the ball needed to move. And frankly, we didn't have enough other talent on the court that it moved back evenly to him. So the first thing we wanted to sell him on was the vision of a selfless game of basketball played with really high-level talents. Because we had so many draft picks that had been built over those 5 years, Chris Grant had done an amazing job of building a stockpile of those. Because we had done such work there, we had all these bullets in the chamber. And so what we did was we shared with he and his father and his agent what those things could yield, realistically what they could yield, not the pipe dream scenario. So ironically, we didn't really talk about LeBron that night because frankly, we had no earthly idea that LeBron would truly come back. I sort of envisioned that what he was going to tell us was, look, I'm intrigued. I'll be there in a year. This is sort of what I thought would happen. So when we sat with him, what we talked about were all the other free agents that we wanted to go after. And because of the brand of basketball, he knew that our teams in Phoenix that I had helped build play. And because of Steve Nash, he understood what we expected from a point guard. He understood what he could see put around him. And so all of those names we talked about, we were in lockstep in pursuing. Well, it makes it really easy when Kyrie Irving calls first. And in the situation we ended up with, LeBron James, who really is as much executive of the year as we're going to be, was able to call all the free agents that we liked and talk to them as well. So it ended up being a shared vision more than anything else, but it also was an understanding of, look, I understand how we've shortcut you, and here's how we're going to fix it. And that's important for us. You know, we needed to know what we had put him through. It was interesting. His agent presented something that night that I thought was genius. It's a list of the 44 players Kyrie Irving had played with during his career to that point. 44 guys. And it was a laundry list that was incredible. It's hard to be a dominant point guard in this league and to be a guy who transcends and makes people better when you're not playing with people you trust or feel and know are on the same page. So starting with that was really what we did with Kyrie, and we were blessed. David Blatt and Ty Lue were together at that meeting, and each one of them spoke to another part of Kyrie and his group. Kyrie's father really embraced everything that happened, so it was a great night. It was really, really good. Well, thank you all very much. Let's get some wins tonight and in the future.
Hey guys, I'm going to ask David real quick as the last thing we do here. Everyone dropped a business card in their jar, hopefully, when they came in. We have a pair of tickets. We don't know the day of the game yet, but the first playoff game, pair of VIP tickets. David, would you mind pulling the winner for us?
I can see Cavs cards. I can't do that. Okay. Susan Gallagher, Friends of Breakthrough.
All right, thank you guys for attending. I hope you had a good time. The bar's open for a few more minutes. On your way out, we're going to go out this way. You'll be directed out, so you don't have to do the long walk through the old factory floor again. There is some literature. There's one flyer put out by ByteGrid about this facility, and there's a second flyer down there about SecureData, our company, and kind of our pricing philosophy. And there's a nice bag there with our two logos on it that you can put that material in. So thank you so much for coming. I hope you guys had a good time, and go Cavs.